on, and we came into this area in the hope of finding some tracks of Shadow and her cub, but this is what we found instead. How awesome is this? It's a large herd of buffalo. It's been quite some time since we have seen a large herd of all different shapes and sizes, and quite often you can find lions trailing these large herds. I don't think we're necessarily going to get lucky this morning. Tracks of the Nkuhuma Pride have been found in Buffalo's Hook, north of us, and there's no other lion that we know of in this area. I also have no idea how large this herd is. They've been crossing this road for quite some time now, and it looks like they're going to continue to do so for a little bit longer, possibly a couple of hundred of buffalo. And as you look at all the different individuals within this herd, what you need to look for, if you'd like to differentiate between male and female, is that the males will often have a very large crown where the horn meets in the center of their head, whereas the females will lack that crown, and they'll often have a tuft of hair. So this is a female we're looking at kind of in the center of your shot. You can see that tuft of hair coming out the center, and you'll see the males have got a much bigger bulge of keratin. So it's mainly females that we're seeing. And I'll wait until a big male comes. I'm sure it won't be long until we do see a big male. But both males and females will have the horns. You'll also notice that there are a lot of birds sitting on the backs of these buffalo, and these are the red-billed oxpeckers. Mainly there could be some yellow-billed oxpeckers as well, but they are a lot more rare to see, and I've only managed to be able to show you the yellow-billed oxpeckers on one occasion so far. There's a big male. You can see how he's not actually that big and old, but you can see that keratin crown at the center of his head. Wonderful. Now, there's a strong chance that these animals would have been chased by a lion, and that's why they're quite nervous this morning, and also that combined with the wind. You'll also notice one of the females has got a collar, and I wonder where she was collared. And this will be for research to monitor where the herds move over the seasons. Sadly though, it's not information that's readily available to us, and there's a strong chance she was collared within the Greater Kruger National Park, and she has moved into the Sabi Sands from there. And it's wonderful how we are part of a massive, very, very natural ecosystem, 3 million hectares in size. And wouldn't it be interesting to know what information is being gathered from the radio transmitter around her neck? The radio from Gareth, one of the new guides at Sibambili, and he said that Tingana and Kwatile were seen mating in this similar area yesterday afternoon, and their general direction was moving north, so kind of to where we are now, but I haven't seen any tracks of them, and it was yesterday afternoon, so they could have moved a long distance from here. What's interesting about this though is that Kwatile is a female leopard that we've only seen, I think, once, and possibly on one other occasion when I wasn't around, but she usually hangs out much further to the south of where we are. And the last time we actually saw her mating, it was with Mvula, and that was probably about 4 months ago. So obviously she either lost her cubs that she may have given birth to, or simply didn't conceive from that session of mating with Mvula. And what's also interesting about her being here is that she is way, way far out of her territory, but that's not uncommon for female leopards, because when they are in season, they may travel quite far to mate with males that buffer their area. So there could be several males that they may want to mate with to give them a false sense of fatherhood, and she's come into Tingana's territory here to mate with him. And wouldn't it be wonderful if we got to see her after not seeing her for so long, as well as Tingana and them mating? So that's a good prospect, and usually leopards mate for 3 to 5 days, so they could very well be mating today. I'm not sure how long they were mating for before they were found yesterday, but there is still a chance of that happening a little bit later on. Let's take a closer look here. I'm wondering how much longer these buffalo will keep streaming past us. There must at least be 300 or 400 members of this herd as a rough estimate from what we've seen so far. I'm just going to get my binoculars up and ready to see if we can't find you any yellow-billed oxpeckers amongst the more common red-billed. It gives you a very good idea just of how dry and dusty it is at the moment. As when they run up, they kick up a cloud of dust. I'm just going to reposition the vehicle ever so slightly. It looks like there's no more members that are going to be passing in front of us, but a portion of the herd is split and passing down to the south of where we are. Well, Clown Sharon has just made a funny comment saying that it's like waiting for a train to cross, and that's a great analogy. It's a very long stream of buffalo, no different to the carriages of a train passing by over this road. You'll notice also weeks of birthing usually tiny babies born in the middle of winter. An array of different sized and shaped youngsters. You can hear the shrill calls of the oxpeckers as well. You'll notice also weeks of birthing usually tiny babies born in the middle of winter. An array of different sized and shaped youngsters. You can hear the shrill calls of the oxpeckers as well. And they're enjoying this very large in their sights. A spot here. Another reason that I haven't touched on why they could be kind of running a little bit in that direction is that they can possibly sense the water ahead of them and hear the other buck.
Hi guys!
But another game vehicle headed in. And like I said, what a pleasant surprise. And don't worry, Charlie, we're not going to leave until you get to see the very last one crossing. Oh, this is quite a nice bull. Got a very wide spread of horns. Just going to get on the radio quickly, two more. Hey, there's that big bull. Look at how cool he is. He looks in great condition, even though it is the dry. And we still haven't seen the last one, Charlie, so don't worry. We're still waiting for that to happen. Close by so that I can hear his clock. Seen the last one, Charlie, so don't worry, we're still waiting for that to happen. Close by so that I can hear his clock. Can any station help me with an update on anything else that's happening on Safari this morning? So just a few more. Good to have you. So just a few more. Good to have you with us. Nation, week in front. Just Sept pattern that I've noticed, but typically it would be the weakest animals at the back that are struggling to keep up with the herd. So that's what I'm guessing we may see. We may see the weakest individual being the last one. Even this female there that we can see, oh no, that's a male. He doesn't look in good condition. That's why I thought he was a female. So that's a good sign of the older and weaker animals being at the back of the herd. But typically what will happen is under a threat, or when they are under attack from lion, the herd will generally gather around and keep the youngest calves within the middle, and all the big bulls will stand in front and keep a dominant and powerful force between the threats and the weak animals. But initially what will always happen is that lion will ambush them, they'll get a big fright and run off every group after the initial surprise of the attack, and try and overthrow lion that's and you think it's got no chance. The herd comes back, chases the lion away, and the calf or whatever animal was brought down lives to tell the story. I'm just going to creep forward a little bit. There's an old female, or maybe we can actually just view her from here. I'm not sure if it is the horn broken, not looking in the best condition. Past. I think she is the last, and you can tell she is to keep up. Great. Well, like I say, no idea exactly back onto Djuma, and then we can get to count them or get a better idea of how many there are. Wow, what a pleasant surprise. Like I said, it's been a long time since we have seen a large herd of buffalo, so I hope you all enjoyed that. But now we are going to send you across to James's vehicle to enjoy something else that he's found for you.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Djuma. Hello everybody, sorry about that, couple of issues, big cold front coming in, changes in atmospheric pressure, aliens stealing parts from our satellites, you know, all sorts of different things. So, but here we are at the magnificent hyena den, and there are quite a lot of hyena around. As you can see, the mother, the matriarch, who I believe to be the matriarch anyway, is the one the closest to us. She's got a big scar on her back, and she is probably the mother of the, or she is the mother of the very little one. And then the other two little ones are, or the one in main picture now and his sibling, are children of another female, and then there's another slightly bigger cub somewhere around as well. I think the one who the little cub is now harassing. Now I've been to this hyena den 3 times, and only once have we seen the cub before it disappeared briefly. But what a wonderful sight to spend some time with him today on this cool, blustery, eerie, atmospheric, low-felt spring morning. Please don't disappear. I wonder if we shouldn't go around there. What do you think? We'll sit here for a little while, and if the cub keeps disappearing around the side, we'll just move slightly. What do you think, Brian? Should we try there?
No, let's go ahead.
Okay, we're just going to go around the other side quickly. It won't take long. Watch your heads, everybody. Oh, sorry. Okay. Brian is just extricating, well actually he's pulling a tree down. He's basically done an elephant job on this beaten tree. Well done, Brian.
Thank you.
Does pay to have size. Watch your heads again, everybody. Oh, this would be a nice view in here. Just going to very slowly sneak in here. Look at that. That is spectacular. They're all here. 2 adults, 3 older cubs, one of them older than the other 2, and then of course the little one. And look how that cub, I think, if I'm not mistaken, born in May, June, July, August, now 4 months old, is starting to lose its black colour and getting its spots. Probably just over 3 months actually. I think late May it was born. And its young cousin there obviously taking slight exception to the needle-like little teeth that are threatening to bite it in a particularly sensitive area, it would seem, that the cub is going for. As I've said before, this behavior is not uncommon, and it is extremely important. This is how children, humans, cubs fawns, lambs. What other kind of little things do you get? Foals, pups. That's how they learn, or that's how their neurology develops. It's only through this play behavior that the coordination needed for adulthood is developed. Now, I think that this cub is a female. There are various reasons for my thinking that, and I might be wrong, but the first is that when we first saw her, I'm going to refer to her as a her, she had a scar already on the front of her body, and I suspect that came from a siblicide fight. If two hyenas, females, are born to the matriarch, one will kill the other, and I suspect that's why she was quite injured from a very early age. The other reason is that she has got... hyena is difficult to sex at the best of times because the females have a pseudo-penis and pseudo-scrotum, but the shape of the pseudo-penis on the female is different from that of the male, and the female tends to be fairly straight and shapeless at the end, and I think this one has got a fairly shapeless one. It is difficult to see though. I might be wrong, but those are the reasons I think this is a female. You can see the little path that the little one's walking along. That path has been worn by the hyenas coming in and out of this den on a continuous basis. And very shortly you will be able to see some form of dominance behavior if she is the daughter of the matriarch, which we think she is. She stands in line, of course, to inherit the clan from her mother. There is a sort of genetic lineage to the matriarchy of a hyena clan. And so she will very shortly, as soon as she gets all hyenas of equi-size to her, I mean, she's smaller than all the others at the moment, but as soon as she gets a little bit bigger than them, they will start to show her deference. They will start to behave in a subordinate manner. And you can see how confident she is, walking around on her own and, playing with the bigger ones and not seeming to be in any sort of, or not demonstrating any form of, what's the word I'm searching for, Brian? It's not a hard word. Subordinance isn't a noun as far as I know. Anyway, she has not showing any subordinate behavior. We're running off there. I don't think she's going to stay away from this den or stray too far from the den. But the others will forage on a day like this. It's very cool. So the need to lie down in the shade for much of the heat of the day is not so strong. Just a quick one, Brian. Do you think that this one is the matriarch with the scar on her back? Okay, so I think this is quite interesting. I don't think this is the matriarch we're looking at. If you look at her back, she doesn't have that big scar. And she also looks a bit younger. So this is probably the mother of these two cubs here that are basically entangled in her. And one of them certainly seems to be attempting some form of a suckling motion, so probably not the mother of the very little one, and probably a nice explanation for why when the little one did come up she kind of snapped at her a bit. And hyena, much like their lion cousins, will spend a long time sleeping, but definitely less than lions. Lions sleep 20 hours a day. I'd say these guys probably about 15 or 16. There is another hole around the other side, which I truly hope the little one doesn't go into. The ears back there. It's quite subordinate. Now urinating there. Entirely sure what that's about, or why he or she is choosing to pee on the back of her foot. Oh, this is interesting. Look at this. They'll now all smell the urine. Just reaffirm the sort of dominance hierarchy by sniffing genitals and things. I'm so glad I'm not a hyena. There's the little one, right? Coming over the top. Look at that. Excellent question. We can see here probably 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hyena, and I haven't seen more than 8 in one place at Djuma. I think Scott saw maybe 10 at one stage. Anyway, we don't tend to have enormous clans here. Now, past this isn't a big hyena clan for this area, and there are no very big hyena clans in this area. And you ask the question, is there a specific reason why they're much bigger in a place like Kenya and Tanzania? Pass, absolutely. That is purely a function of the distribution and abundance of prey species. So in Kenya and Tanzania you have those vast herds of antelope, and they provide an enormous amount of food, both in terms of hunting and in terms of scavenging for the hyenas. The hyenas there will hunt a lot, but they will also, if you imagine a hyena following that migration of wildebeest across the Serengeti plains, most mortality is actually natural. There are 2 million wildebeest that do that migration, and there's a lot of mortality that happens purely from injury, and when they birth, of course, there's an enormous amount of afterbirth and that sort of thing. And the hyenas, because of that enormous food source, will form much bigger clans than they do here. The baby is now supping on the ear of a cousin. To get itself into trouble, I think, fairly soon. Yeah, you can see this female is not particularly tolerant of the little cub. Not aggressive, but definitely not her mother. Where the matriarch would be, probably out foraging. We've seen the matriarch as far afield as Buffelshoek Dam. Now that is from here about 5 kilometers as the crow flies. No, probably about 3 kilometers as the crow flies. So I mean along the path that the hyena would have taken, probably about 5 k's away. So, a few days ago I had an amazing sighting at the Djuma waterhole. Ooh, the little one is now in a lot of trouble. Wonderful sighting at the Djuma waterhole the other day. And there were 2 youngsters. I'm not sure if you can hear them. I will explain what's going on now. I just want to watch this. disgusting. I feel ill. Brian, aren't you glad you don't have to greet people like that? Is that not astonishing? So what's happening there, I mean, it's just a greeting ritual. Everyone's making peace. The most senior female here urinated on the floor. Everybody's having a taste and and rolling in it, of course, which is what one does if one is a hyena. And this, of course, is why, Anna Marie, the hyenas that I saw at the Djuma waterhole the other day smelt so horrific. This is what hyenas do. They roll around in dung, rotten flesh, and obviously their own urine, which is not particularly appealing trait that they have, but that's what they do. And I do think that those two that I saw, while not here, were part of the same clan, and that's because they are right in between the two dens. They're right in between the two den sites that we know of. This one, and of course the other one, which is on a place called Philemon's Cutline. And hyenas are highly territorial. They tend not to overlap clan boundaries unless they have huge territories, and so they can get extremely violent. Remember, the more a carnivore lives in a group, the more violent they will be with each other when they're territorial. So wild dogs not so violent with each other because they're not particularly territorial, but hyenas absolutely can be. I've seen tremendous fights. There's something coming in here. It looks like it's coming in. That's so sweet. I would consider picking it up and putting it on my lap and giving it a tickle if it hadn't been rolling in pee. Now I am a bit confused here, I have to confess. I think that the three middle-sized ones, like the one looking at us now, are all the same size. Brian? Don't you think? But before we saw two of that size and then one larger one. So I don't know what's going on here. There are three here that look to me to be the same size. And I think that one there, the middle one that you can see in picture, is not the offspring of the one that's currently suckling the other two, because it's not suckling, of course. So I'm not sure where that slightly larger baby has gone. So you can see quite clearly how close and inquisitive they are. Now, if you look at them when they stand up again, when I initially got in here, I thought that one of these other cubs, not the baby, was one of the older ones. But all three of these littler ones are the same size as each other. Anyway, I think time will tell when we see the rest of the clan around. Look at this little thing. This is so special to see. It really is just spectacular. Such a privilege to sit here and have these hyenas behave for us in a totally natural fashion. And now the little one will always go towards the hole when it's feeling a little bit threatened, because it's totally safe in there. Even from the other adult hyena, it will have its own little specially sized shelf inside to which no other hyena will be able to get. Much surer on its feet than it was when we first found it. Hyena will suckle much longer than the other carnivores. You can see that one there. The two that are suckling are probably about, I would say, 6 to 7 months old, and they'll suckle for up to a year. And just to give you a quick update I've received on the radio, everyone's asking about the lions and what's going on and where they are. The Nkahuma pride, which consists of 4 adult females, 2 sub-adult females, and a young male of about 3.5 years, was found yesterday north in Buffelshoek, and they've just found Junior, the young male. He's fine. He's on his own at the moment, though. He seems to have left the pride for the moment. We don't know where they've gone, but he's sitting just north of us on Buffelshoek. Something's coming in here that's making the little one back in there. Isn't that interesting? Looking behind us, I can't see anything. Blind things in there. Maybe the little one smelled something. The others don't see. Well, one of the adults is looking that way, or was. You can see looking the same direction the youngster was. Maybe a smell carried on the wind. You can hear the wind blowing. And of course the 2 apex predators in this area are the lion, well us of course, we are the apex predator, but below us we have the lion and the hyena, and they are very much, they jostle for who's number 1 and who's number 2. In this area it's definitely the lion that sits at number 1 and the hyena at number 2, and they have very similar senses. All have excellent ears, very good eyes because they operate at night. I suspect the lion's eyes are probably slightly more impressive because they do have to do a bit more hunting in this area, and they're certainly designed to hunt and pounce, so the accuracy of their attack needs to be that much more keen than it is with the hyenas, which tend to just chase prey down till it drops dead of exhaustion. And the noses, of course, of the hyena for sniffing out carrion are quite exceptional. You can just get an impression there from the sight of the clouds, lovely green tree, of the atmosphere that there is around here. It's cool, it's blustery, it's kind of mysterious, and obviously if you're a hyena, fairly smelly because you happen to be lying in 2 puddles of urine. Yes, I am talking about you lying in urine, that is correct. There's definitely something on the wind that they're picking up, that they're smelling. And I'm just going to quickly address a question that came through. I'm not sure who it came from exactly, but I'll get an update on that, about climate change, because it's relevant while we're sitting here. And it came from Susan in San Francisco. Now, you want to know, Suze, are there any obvious effects of climate change in this area? And the answer is no, not yet, as far as we know. Nothing conclusive. But we do know that climate change is happening. Yes, there's some debate over why it's happening, but it certainly is happening. And it would definitely seem that to have anthropogenic effects, at least causes, so we are causing it in some way. But quite regardless of that, Suze, it is a good question that you ask, because it will have an effect. The hotter it gets and the higher the CO2 content of the atmosphere gets, what we will find out here is that the thicker the bush will get. Now this will happen over a period probably of 20 or 30 years if the climate and atmospheric conditions continue to change the way they are. And that's because for wood to form, or CO2, a higher CO2 or carbon dioxide concentration of the atmosphere will tend to favor the development of woody plants at the expense of grasses. And so you would find, if CO2 levels continue to rise and if the temperature continues to rise, so the number of woody plants in the area will go up and the amount of grass will go down. That's as far as I understand it. Of course, there are probably hundreds of other variables that we as human beings are not yet privy to and don't understand, but that's the sort of general understanding of what would happen if current trends continue. Very nice question. Thank you for that, Suze. We're going to just nip across to Scott quickly, see what he's been doing. I know he's been exploring on Arathusa, and he'll give us an update, and we'll be back with you just now.
Welcome back, everyone, and it's great to have you with us again. I shot onto Arathusa temporarily. I couldn't resist the temptation to go and look for Shadow and Madiba, but didn't find too much or any real sign of them, but was worth a try. It's been a while since we've seen the two of them, either alone or together, but maybe this afternoon our luck will change. The weather's got really cold and windy. I've had to put on another jacket. Viam's got a blanket wrapped around him. And it certainly wasn't this bad as we headed out. Viam actually rigged up the camera in his pajamas, which consist of not too much clothing. So it was quite warm earlier on, but this cold front really does seem to be getting a hold of us now. I hope you've enjoyed your time at the hyena den with James. It sounded like you had a quality sighting with him there. I'm probably going to head down towards Treehouse Waterhole. That's my next plan. It's an area that has yet to be searched this morning, so we may find some interesting updates there. An interesting update on the radio, and I just want to find out exactly what's going on. It sounds like the Nkuhuma Pride made a kill last night And I'm guessing it could have been one of those buffalo from the large herd that we saw. That's why they could have been quite skittish, having been freshly chased by the lion. And it sounds like another animal has stolen their kill from them. The Nkuhumas have got a lot of blood on their face wherever they've been found, which is sadly not too close to where we can go. And I'm really interested to know what stole their kill. Possibly hyena, or possibly some other lions. There's just quite a lot of chatter on the radio now, so I'm waiting for my turn to try and gather some information. Aubrey for Scott. Oh, sorry, I missed. What do you think stole the nyama from the Nkuhumas? Okay, copy, thanks very much, Orbs. Just to let everyone know, there was a herd of about 800 buffalo that crossed from Vuyatela into Sibambilia a little bit earlier. So as you heard, I got an update from Mornay. He was in the buffalo sighting with us, and he was there from the beginning, and he thinks there are about 800 of them. And now I've got some really interesting information from Aubrey. It looks like one of the Birmingham males chased the entire Nkuhuma pride off their buffalo kill, and he's now enjoying the spoils of that kill. So obviously the Birminghams have split up, because some of them have been located very far east of us, and this one individual is here to the west. Unless, of course, it's another male lion, it is difficult to tell who's who. And with the crackly radios that we are experiencing today, sometimes the messages we get aren't very clear. So I'm not sure exactly how many Birminghams have been found at Nkoro to the east of us. Either way, what we can assure you is that the Nkuhumas made a kill, and a single male lion, possibly a Birmingham, did steal the meat from them. We've got a question, same question through from both Ed and Cindy, and they're interested to know what future lies ahead for Junior, the young male within the Nkuhuma pride, especially with the Birmingham coalition around. And I think what's going to happen is he's either going to be killed, or he's going to have to do a very, very good job at flying below the radar. And he may end up many, many kilometers away from here, especially with the turmoil that's going on. That's what I would do if I was him. I would move out of this area and try and fly below the radar, and hopefully find another young male or two, possibly even an older male that's looking for a young blood to help bolster his team. So there is a chance that he could form a coalition with other lions. But more typically, coalitions are formed from a very young age, and it's males that are born within the same natal pride that team up like the Birmingham boys. So they would have been born together into the same pride, maybe not at the exact same time, because they have slightly varying ages. So that's the most typical way that a coalition is formed. But from time to time, you will get completely random males that are mature but not yet dominant, that can join forces. It's usually after a scrap, so they see one another, slap one another around a bit, and then kiss and make up and become friends for life. And it sounds like on the radio now there's a whole load of lions moving around to the east of us, a few lioness, nobody knows what's going on, and that's typical when there is a pride takeover that we're experiencing now, or a coalition takeover. There's turmoil amongst the lion populations, and that was an update I've just heard from Craig over the radio. Oh, well, one lone wildebeest, and you may have got a glimpse of a few zebra that he's tagging along with. Not uncommon for big and old wildebeest to team up with other herbivores to help have a few extra eyes and ears around to keep safe. And he's chosen this small dazzle of zebra. It looks like just three, possibly three young stallions who, just like the Birmingham boys, need to try and establish themselves and get a harem of their own. Interestingly enough, another update on that large herd of buffalo. I heard some yellow-billed oxpeckers were seen on them, so sadly we didn't get to see any, but there were some there. So if they do come back onto the property, we will certainly be trying to keep a close eye out for those special birds. Interesting questions just come through from Trudy, and she's brought up a good point. And because the Birmingham Coalition are from time to time splitting up, and sometimes one individual is missing from the team of 5, if that individual got caught out when he was alone by the Matimba males and was killed, would the other 4 members of the coalition give up their plight to take over this area? And truly there is a small chance that that may happen, but I still think that 4 of them together is still a very formidable team, and they'll continue and will eventually inevitably be big enough and strong enough to be able to acquire a territory of their own. It may slow them down ever so slightly, but I don't think they're just going to give up. They are programmed and driven to want to take over, and the drive to do that will in time overwhelm the older lions in this area. Just a few minutes away from the treehouse waterhole, and like I said, nobody has checked in this area yet this morning, so I'm looking forward to seeing if we don't find any interesting clues here. following on Trudy's question earlier, Georgianne is interested to know if the Matimba males will actively attack a single male if he is alone. And yes, without a doubt, they will see that as a great opportunity to try and increase their chances of staying dominant for longer here. And I'm almost certain that if they got half a chance against one of those Birminghams, they are going to really make the most of it. And I fear that if it is 2 Matimbas against 1 Birmingham, that Birmingham is probably going to come off second best. The Matimbas are considerably larger, and what's important to remember is that their helmets are much bigger. They're big manes, which are there more to protect them than to impress the females. So even though aesthetics are important in nature, the main reason for a male lion to have that big mane is it's a protection for the battles that he gets into. And the bigger the mane, the more protection he has. The Birmingham boys, they've still got a way to go in terms of their helmets. Viam and I are going to continue down towards the treehouse waterhole as planned, and we are going to send you back to James, who's still at the hyena den. Enjoy, and hopefully we'll have some updates for you shortly.
Hello everybody, welcome back to the hyena den, where the hyenas have gone into a sweet state of relaxation on this eerie steel grey morning, where the lions are seemingly in a great deal of upheaval. Wonderful updates there that I believe Scott has given you about the Nkuhuma pride now sitting chased away from a buffalo kill by one of the Birmingham guys, and the young Nkuhuma male junior off to the west somewhere, probably also smarting from being chased. Now if I was a Birmingham male, and I don't know what Scott thinks about this, but if I was a Birmingham male on my own and my cohorts had headed east so far, almost into the Kruger, I would be pretty nervous of that Nkuhuma lion. I think Junior is going to find his courage fairly soon, and he is not a small fellow, that. And I think that he may deliver something of a pasting to a Birmingham male, should that Birmingham male challenge him. But what is interesting, and we don't know which Birmingham male it is, of course, because we don't go up there. It's probably the slightly older one, the slightly more confident one, the one with the slightly fuller mane, and that'll be how he managed to chase off a whole pride without, with no repercussions for himself. The other thing, of course, is that clearly the Birminghams are killing females around the place, and so he's probably tremendously aggressive in a conflict situation. Maybe that's how he managed to chase them all off. I don't know. It's all very fascinating, and eventually it'll play out and things will return to peace, much like the hyenas are feeling as we speak. Those two youngsters have remained suckling continuously since you've been gone with Scott, so they haven't done a lot. The baby is probably fast asleep in the middle of his little hole. They have looked up every so often and looked to the same direction where they were looking before, and I suspect there's something on the air that's making them look up and smell, or maybe a sound that they're hearing every so often. So that is the story of the hyenas, and the story of the lions, of course, is that much more upheavalous at the moment. Is upheavalous a word, Brian? So, Janet, I'm going to answer your question, and then we're going to head away and see what else this magnificent wilderness and eerie day has to offer us. Janet, you want to know, has a hyena ever jumped into the car? Probably as a result of having watched them come so close just now. Janet, the other day when we were watching two hyenas frolic about in the water like two sort of domestic dogs released into the wild, one of them came very close, looked up, and looked like it might lift up its back feet or lift up its front feet and put them onto the door. But I just gave the door a little tap. So the answer, Janet, is no, I've never had a hyena in the vehicle. If I had had a hyena in the vehicle, you can rest assured that my face wouldn't look quite like it does now. It would probably be substantially more scarred. I'd be missing a couple of fingers and possibly a leg. So a hyena in the vehicle would be an extremely unpleasant thing, and it would be probably about as unpleasant as having a leopard in the vehicle, and marginally less unpleasant than having a lion in the vehicle. Either of them, all of them, would result in probably quite severe injury. So no, Janet, no hyena in the vehicle. And you must remember, they see the vehicle as a kind of, it's not very threatening to them. They're a little bit weary of it though, and it smells like a car to them. It smells like petrol and oil and engine, and so they don't really know what to make of it. They recognize us, I think, but they don't see us as the threat in the vehicle until we stand up or we make a bit of a noise, and then normally all the animals will move away from the vehicle. Okay, here we go. We're going to pull out of here, see what else we can see. We'll head down towards the Djuma waterhole, which I'm sure many of you are watching anyway. See what happens to be there. Okay, and while we're pulling out of here, we'll nip back to Scott, and you can go and look at some birds. Apparently there's a really nice bird party going on at Treehouse Waterhole, and I'll see you just now.
Welcome back everyone, and apologies for my misinformation. I'm told James has already checked Treehouse Waterhole this morning. And I'm not sure if this juvenile African fish eagle was here when he came past, but it's been a while since we've seen one of them. And there's also two saddle-billed stork who are just relaxing at the water's edge for now. But I'm thinking of maybe camping out here for the rest of the drive, because it would be wonderful to see them hunting. Although at the moment it's not looking too promising, as they are slowly heading away from the water. So maybe they've already eaten their fill. We are so fortunate to have this resident pair of saddle-billed storks on our property. There's very few of them in the whole of the Greater Kruger National Park, but what you find is where a pair has set up residence, you can get very easy and common sightings of them, but they are few and far between. Possibly only 100 pairs in the whole 3 million hectares. This is the female on the right. She's got the bright yellow eye, and she's all of a sudden started charging towards the water's edge. So maybe I was wrong. Maybe we will get to see some hunting. Let's watch closely here. Now what you will find is that they'll often use their feet to try and feel their prey and then stab their beak in thereafter. Or another technique that they use is probing into the water with an open beak, and with incredible speed they clamp down on anything that tries to squirm away. And there was a little swirl of water where some fish came to the surface, and I think that caught her attention. And one thing we should all prepare ourselves for is that if she does manage to catch a fish, that juvenile fish eagle will in all likelihood swoop down and try and steal it from her. And some of you may remember that wonderful sighting we had not very long ago, where an adult fish eagle attempted to steal a tilapia from a saddle-billed stork at the Djuma waterhole, and in the commotion the saddle-billed stork dropped the fish straight back into the water, and it escaped to live another day. Just heard another update on the radio that I would like to let you know. It is in all likelihood one Birmingham male that did chase the Inkahumas. The other 4 members were found on Nkoro, so that has been confirmed now. And isn't it interesting how that coalition may split up? Oh! Beautiful, well done, VM. Tricky flying conditions, it's very windy, and that makes it equally difficult for VM to try and stay on the bird. But I wonder where it's decided to head off to now. Come on, Storks, now's your time. The fish eagle's gone. There's nobody here to steal your prey from you. Maybe we'll see a change in their behavior now. Now, the main fish species that we get here in the Sabi Sands, especially in the waterholes, are tilapia and catfish or barbel. So it's 2 main species that we will find. And Anna Marie's interested to know if there are any eels. And not that I know of, I've done a lot of fishing within the Sabi Sands and never caught an eel, but within the Sand River and within the Sabi River, which are the 2 rivers that flow through the Sabi Sands, and that's what gives it its name, the Sabi River and the Sand River, I have heard reports of there being eels, and they will certainly be fed on by animals like this. So Anna Marie, there's the answer to your question. I've never actually seen an eel here though, so not sure how many there are, but like I say, in the Sand River it is possible. And also in the Sand River there are other fish. The tiger fish occur in the Sand River, as well as labios or scalies, which is a carp-like fish, as well as a host of other smaller fish. So the Sand River is a much better ecosystem, or a much more diverse ecosystem, I should rather say, than a lot of the waterholes here. But sadly, we don't have access to any stretch of river frontage just yet, but hopefully one day people will allow us to traverse their land as well, and we'll get to show you the beautiful Sand River or Sabi River. But for now it flows to the south of us, and it really is a beautiful, beautiful area of the Sabi Sands. Come on, Storks. And Joshua in Texas is interested to know about the catfish we get here, and whether they've got very sharp spines coming out of their fins that can be very painful if impaled. And they do have some fins and barbs that you do need to be careful of, but nothing too serious. So I don't think it is the same as the catfish that you get in Texas. And I know there are other catfish even in Africa that will also be able to erect their pectoral fins out to the side, kind of perpendicular to their body. And if you do get impaled by them, it's very painful, but not poisonous. So it's not really a sting. Well, because the storks don't seem to be doing too much, I think we will probably carry on and see what else we can find. But let's give it a few more moments, and maybe they'll change their tune. And as you can see, this pond is drying out and therefore a lot of fish may die. And that'll mainly be the tilapia, who don't have the ability to encompass themselves in a layer of mucus like the catfish and survive in a completely dried out pond until the next rains arrive. So the catfish will always be present. They can make a plan through the dry season. Incredible adaptation that they have. But the tilapia certainly don't have that ability. And Siberia Zumi is interested to know if the landowners will ever restock the water holes. And yes, they certainly may do. In my history, I've never actually seen them doing it. Oh. What's happening here? Finally. That's better. Come on. So, I don't think it is necessary, and it may happen from time to time, and I'm guessing that's how the tilapia and the catfish got into these dams in the first place. As they are man-made, they aren't natural water holes. So it could very well happen. I certainly would if I was a landowner, but that's probably just because I love fishing. So it is something that could well happen, and what I'll do is chat with the landowner here at Djuma next time he's around and see if he can give us any interesting stories as to what happened many years ago when these dams were initially made and where the stock fish came from. Well, Rita's just mentioned that the storks have got stage fright, and it is interesting. I mean, we spent quite a lot of time with them, but they are still fairly nervous of the vehicles. So it could be that, Rita, you may very well be correct. But half of me is also saying that because the hunting is quite easy at the moment, that they are possibly have already had their breakfast for the morning and therefore aren't hugely compelled to make their next meal, or make their next kill rather. Okay, well, earlier on we got to see hundreds of live buffalo crossing the road from Djuma into Sibambili, and now James is going to show you a buffalo that's in a slightly different state. Enjoy, and we'll see you a little bit later.
I'm not sure what inspired that in me, but it felt the right eerie sort of sound to play as we look at this buffalo. And in case you were wondering, this buffalo is no longer alive. It is well dead, killed here by the 5 Birmingham males a few days back. Now, there are a couple of very interesting things about this, and Teresa, you asked us to come back here. Slightly morbid, I think, but Teresa, thank you for your request, because it is actually fascinating. So the first thing to look at here, there are a number of things. The first thing to look at is the nasal cavity and the left eye, or what used to be the left eye, and there are a whole lot of little white spots there that you can see. Now if you look closely, you'll see that those little white spots are in fact moving, and that is because they are fly larvae or maggots. So a fly will come onto a buffalo like this, lay its eggs, and the maggots will then feed on the rotting flesh. Now we think of that as a very dirty thing. Those maggots apparently are actually very good wound cleaners, and certainly I've heard of incidents where wounds, if you have a wound that is festering slightly, you put maggots on it and they do clean that wound quite nicely. So interesting there. Then if we follow the line of the vertebra of the spine down, we can see there, you can see some white flashes. Now we can't get much closer because of the bush around here, but those white flashes are feathers, down feathers from vultures. And in the trees around us, we can't really see them here, they're kind of behind us and behind a whole lot of other trees. There are still quite a few vultures, white-headed vultures mainly, and possibly some hooded vultures, and I think the bigger ones like the lappet-faced will have moved on by now. But there's still quite a lot left to eat there. There's quite a lot of the sort of cartilaginous intercostal stuff between the ribs, and there's no real meat left, but there is definitely some intercostal stuff that the hyenas will come and eat. They will bite off, you can see this, the length of the ribs there. They will eat about half of those ribs eventually. And I think the fact that so much remains of this buffalo, I mean it's definitely still feeding quite a few creatures, is testament to the fact that the hyena clan in this area is not very big. I don't think it's a big clan. I've certainly, like I've said, I think the most we've seen together is about 10 of them, and that's not unusual, it's not bad in any way, it's just not a very big clan. I think that in an area with a larger clan of hyenas, this buffalo would have disappeared quite a lot faster than it has. The next thing that will happen, of course, is that the horn moths, especially as we go in towards the summertime, the horn moths will land on the keratin of the horns, and they will lay their eggs there, and the larvae will eat down into the keratin that covers the bone that is inside that sort of black covering on the horns, and they will then eat that up and pupate and fly off. So everything will be used. The skin will eventually be probably eaten by a few hyenas, desperate ones perhaps, and all of those little bits of muscle fiber and ligaments and tendons that are still holding the skeleton together will be devoured by the birds. The feet, possibly hyenas as well. I think only they will be sort of equipped enough to eat off the hooves. And as we know, I mean, if you've ever had a dog, you know that a dog likes to eat buffalo or cow hooves, and so they will also be eaten. And what will remain is the skull. That won't be eaten. A lot of the vertebra will survive unscathed almost, and then slowly after that what will happen is something like a porcupine might come and sample a piece of bone, because they like to do that. They need extra calcium for their quills. A tortoise might even come and chew on some of the bone in order for its shell to reach sort of, you know, to gain the calcium necessary for shell development. And then of course in dry times, and we've seen this many times out here, some of the antelope, like the nyala especially, will come and suck on the bones when they're a bit cleaner of meat than they are now, and that gives them minerals that they don't necessarily get in the vegetation that they eat, phosphorus and calcium being two of the minerals that they'll get from sucking on the bones. But I think sucking on that maggot infested leg bone, for example, or the rest of the carcass would result in them getting quite sick at this stage, so the herbivores will definitely stay away from it now. The other scavengers that might come and eat a piece would be the jackals, but we don't get many jackals here. I'm really not sure why. And those that we do get are side-striped, and the side-striped tend to be more omnivorous. And I think that's about all that's going to eat on this. Yes, Siberia, Zumi, you've said, are there any wasps or other animals that will come and eat on this flesh? There are a few. Now, one of them, of course, is dung beetles. A lot of dung beetles will eat on festering flesh, if you like, and so they're not only eating dung. And I remember catching a dung beetle once in my room, intent on investigating it, and I held it up to my face to look at it, and it smelt basically, we found a honey badger the other day that had died, and it was the worst smell I've ever had in my life, seconded only by that dung beetle that I caught, and that's because it had been sitting on a carcass somewhere devouring the rotten flesh, and it really did stink horrifically. Wasps, Siberia, no, I don't think wasps will eat this. Wasps tend to be almost entirely herbivorous in terms of what they eat. Well, no, that's not true. They do eat a lot of spiders and that sort of thing, but I don't think a wasp will eat any flesh off this particular carcass. And you can also see the jawbone. If we zoom in there on the jawbone. Liz in Wisconsin, you want to know what happens to the teeth. Do they get eaten? They don't get eaten. I'm sure they get chewed upon, possibly by porcupines and other animals like that. Maybe the tortoises as well. What you'll find is that they will disperse from here. They'll get buried. They'll be, covered in sand and perhaps grow into the grass, but they won't disappear completely. And you can see them still there in the bottom jaw, and there will be some in the top jaw as well. They don't remember that buffalo don't have incisors that are particularly big. They've got small ones on the top and bottom that help them to crop away at the grass, but they don't have big incisors. So that is maybe swallowed when the front of the jaw and the front of the nose is eaten. I suspect those teeth are probably swallowed by the lions and the hyenas, and they will pass probably fairly unharmed through the digestive system out into some of those steaming piles of lion dung that really smell quite unbelievably horrific, and yet are still sampled. Even that doesn't go to waste out here, some of the vultures, like the hooded vulture, will happily go and eat a pile of lion dung. I am again pleased that I am not a vulture or a hyena. Yuck. So what I think we should do is just reverse out of here. I think we've probably used this buffalo as much as it's going to be. We're going to go and just have a quick look at the vultures and see if we can't get a good view. I think, it looks like they've all flown off actually. It's quite windy, difficult for them to fly, so I'm not sure where they're going, but they can in a strong wind like this use the wind, if they fly correctly, to get up into the sky. Right, it's been a fascinating morning of different little things and wonderful birds, beautiful eerie scenery, and magnificent hyena. So thank you very much for your comments and conversation that you've created through your questions. It really is lovely to hear from you, and especially from your new viewers. I think Carolyn in Chicago, you were a first-time viewer, and perhaps one or two others. Thank you very much for your comments. And thank you to Brian, who forgot his hat today, and he was very worried that he was going to burn his rather fine face in the sun, but luckily there wasn't any sun to burn him today. Thanks to Tara and Louise and Nikki in the final control, and I'm going to hand you back over to the inimitable, magnificent specimen that is Scott Dyson, and he'll say the final goodbyes, and I will see you this afternoon. Bye-bye, and thank you very much.
Well, isn't it going to be interesting to see what does end up finishing off that buffalo carcass? I'm sure it's going to be a lot of the smaller decomposers and insects, and it's that perfect time of the year where we are seeing more insects and arachnids. And we saw the scorpion earlier, for those of you who weren't tuned in, and Mission's interested to know what animals will feed on scorpions. Well, we know for certain white-tailed mongoose will. We got to see that live the other night when they were testing out the night cam. But a lot of other animals will also eat scorpions, like a lot of the birds, dwarf mongooses, banded mongooses, which are other mongooses that we get out here, honey badgers. What else am I not thinking of? Mainly birds and the smaller predatory mammals will feed on the scorpions. But they are very often very well concealed. So it's animals that can dig and excavate that can get them out of their burrows that will mainly be the ones that feed on them. Interestingly, I've just seen another interesting insect that we will see more of and actually hear very often, and that's the spider hunting wasp. It's quite a large wasp, and it's got a loud droning noise like a diesel engine that you hear flying about. And as their name suggests, they hunt spiders and actually lay their eggs within spiders, so that when they hatch, they've got a larder of food to feed on. And what you'll often see the spider hunting wasps doing is excavating burrows that they will bury the spider that they've caught, often quite large spiders, like the baboon spiders. And that will be something that we hopefully get to show you. And on the topic of insects and the weird and wonderful creatures that we will hopefully be seeing, James has asked if we will be seeing any lunar praying mantises, and yes, we will. We will be seeing a host of many different praying mantises, some of which have got incredibly cryptic camouflage and very strange designs. I really look forward to sharing all these different bugs with you that we get out here. Well, sadly, the sunrise safari is coming to a close. There hasn't been too much sun on this safari, and we're all quite cold. Wiem is saying that we're not used to these cold temperatures, so it's probably not as bad as it seems, and I'm sure a lot of you are in a lot colder climates than we are, but we're not very used to it, especially after the hot spell that we've been having. Anyway, thanks very much for joining in, and it's always wonderful to chat with you and share your comments and thoughts and ideas about what's going on at the moment. So thank you for your contributions there. And I guess the highlights of the morning for me was probably seeing that scorpion, although that large herd of buffalo was also a wonderful, wonderful sighting. And you also got to see some fun stuff with James. So all in all, another good day out on safari. Thanks to Tara, who directed the show, and Nikki and Louise lended them a hand. Well done, Vian, on camera. And we're all looking forward to joining on the Sunset Safari later on. See you later.